Once upon tomorrow. Unless you could climb very high and see very far, the city sprawled out farther than the eye could see, and it was obviously a broken city. Many buildings had fallen down. Many more had holes in the walls and in the floors. The streets were networks of cracks. The city wasn't a happy place, and fewer people lived there than once obviously had, but it was still a living city, even if it was broken. Campfires burned on cracked pavements that were busy with activity. People lived in the buildings that were still standing, and they made houses of shacks in the streets. They worked and they traded. They bustled and they hustled. They lived the best lives that they could, in a city as broken as it was. No one could remember what had broken the city. It had happened a long time before, deep in the past. Life was hard in the broken city, and people didn't like to think about the past. Come to think of it, people didn't like to think about the future either. In fact, the people here didn't like to think very much at all. Don't look badly on them for that. Sometimes, when life is hard, it's easier not to think. Now, this city wasn't the only broken city. There were many such cities. All of them had been broken by the same forgotten event. The people who lived in most of the broken cities were similarly similar. A few of them had more thoughts than they absolutely had to. A few still voiced those thoughts. Almost everyone in the broken cities was as broken as the cities they lived in. Almost everyone. One part-time resident of this particular city was a pretty little jackal. She didn't have a house of her own, but jackals often don't, and she didn't have an owner because jackals aren't owned. She was as free a spirit as a spirit could be, and unlike everyone else in the broken city, she wasn't there because she had no choice but to be. She was there precisely because she had chosen to be. At least, she had for the time being. You see, the pretty little jackal, whose name was Little Jackal because jackals aren't very good at thinking of names, she liked the city. Not because there was very much to like, mind you, but rather because it was different to her other home in the forest, or her home in the glade, or her home on the mountain, or her home by the sea. The jackal had many homes because she was as free a spirit as a spirit could be.